There's a reason why for the last 13 years, startups overwhelmingly prefer to build on top of AWS. We have the largest number of services, making it easy for you to take on some of the biggest challenges with the smallest teams. We also have partnerships with the top VCs, accelerators, and incubators around the world, making it easier to secure your next round of funding.
I'm a solution architect with the AWS Head Start program. What we do is we work with startups in the education sector, and we help them build their services on AWS.
So We Power Tech is AWS's diversity and inclusion outreach program. The program is really twofold. One is to increase the number of underrepresented technologists within the industry, and the second is to provide a platform for them to be seen and heard.
If you're wondering how the AWS evangelism team might be able to help your startup, there are many ways. We're technically credible across our entire catalog of products, so we can help you figure out which services might be able to meaningfully impact your business. We also want to help tell your story. So if you're building something cool, we want to know about it and help spread that message to the world. So you might end up on stage at an event like AWS Summit. If you're a startup, you should also definitely check out the AWS Lofts. These are event spaces that are free to anyone with an AWS account. And you can treat them like co-working spaces, but the awesome thing about them is that we also have people like technical evangelists like myself, solutions architects that come and give hands-on technical workshops and sessions to help you learn how to more effectively utilize the AWS products and platforms that you're already building on top of.
We are a dedicated team of people that love startups, that we just want to come and help you with whatever we can, whether it be technical or business focused. We are here to help guide you and make sure that you do have a say in what's going on. We do get your feedback. We do bring that feedback to the service teams. That is what we're here for.
So, hello everybody. Welcome to this month's Startup Grind for the SG Virtual. We are today having a workshop, a webinar with Richard Russell, which we had the pleasure to have at the Fireside Chat last week. So first of all, some housekeeping notes. Big thanks to AWS for being the partner worldwide for the SG Virtual in April, as well our local partners, BPM, CMS Law, Mixoip, and Foxpeer. But without further ado, I would like to introduce Richard Russell, which, as I said, we had a fireside chat where you could learn a little bit more about him. The other thing is also for this event, you can either react by the chat box or via asking Q&A. So you can ask them during the whole event, and Richard will go through them, over them through during the whole event. So, Richard, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Okay, yeah. So if you have any questions that are clarifications, I'll respond to them during the call. Otherwise, we'll save it. Steve, I think you need to stop sharing the screen, and I can share mine. I think that's how it works.
Yes.
There it is. Right. There it is. Right, so I presume everyone can see this screen. Please do interrupt or tell Steve if you can't. But you should see a screen that says Innovate like Amazon and has a picture of myself looking slightly fuzzy down the bottom and has my contact details. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions about this or are interested in this for your organization later on. Just a little bit of background. I've had to make this presentation a little shorter to fit into the timeline. But my background, I worked at Google for a long time. I was at Deutsche Bank before that, and then I started a startup called Welcome. And while I was at Google, my manager from Deutsche Bank contacted me and said, "How does Google innovate? What can we learn?" And honestly, my answer was, "Well, it's about hiring smart people, giving them free food and beanbags and 20% time." And actually, it was a pretty crap answer, and it doesn't actually help him answer the question. It doesn't help him to innovate in his organization. And then I started my company Welcome, and it was a failure because the idea wasn't right. But it was a really interesting learning experience where I really learned about the market. And then I went to Amazon and I discovered Working Backwards. Now this presentation is about working backwards. It's not taken from Amazon. It's basically, Amazon has an approach that I use that I like, and I've adapted it to be able to be used elsewhere. What I have found is that the Amazon style of doing things doesn't always work exactly everywhere else, but this adaptation does work. So the problem that people come across is actually the same problem that I had with Welcome. And it's that new products and ideas fail on a regular basis. You can see here on the left, this is like common failures from big companies and startups. someone's done some analysis somewhere and said 3,000 ideas, 100 projects, 2 launches, 1 success. Who knows how accurate this is? I mean, it's just data. But someone's done an assessment of the top reasons startups fail, and you can look at this. No market need is the top reason. But if you look down the rest of them, even get out-competed, poor product. A lot of these things end up being the same kind of thing. Like, this product is not good enough for the market. It doesn't attract the market. And the real problem here is that the idea is not attracted to customers. There's no market need. And as a startup, this is really embarrassing. As a corporate, it's potentially even more embarrassing. We think we found a problem to solve, but we haven't, and our customers don't actually care. So Lean Startup helps with this a little bit, because it helps you focus on that problem-solving process and on how to go about getting a cycle through iterating on it. Here's a minimal viable product. Here's how I test it with customers. But it doesn't quite help you enough, I don't believe. And this is where Working Backwards comes in. And especially in corporates, even with a lean startup, management often won't take a risk to test a minimum viable product. And a minimum viable product for corporates often costs too much. They're usually quite obsessed with a viable product, less so with the minimal part. And so a minimum viable product for a corporate can cost $500,000. And finally, corporate silos often can't agree how to implement things. So if you do have a startup, a corporate, if you have a startup, it's relatively easy because there's a few of you and there's a clear leader and you have lots of communication. With a corporate, it's a bit harder. So this process that Amazon developed that I've adapted has helped with this. And I wanted to introduce the process to you through the launch that Amazon originally did for Amazon Prime. And you probably all know about Amazon Prime, but back when this was, I think it was 2005 or thereabouts, Jeff Bezos, this is Jeff when he was looking a lot younger and less bald, he said to his team, Super Saver shipping is working really well. Can you bring me some similar ideas for faster shipping? Like, I want some new ideas. And if you don't know what Super Saver shipping is, it's this. It's when you have free shipping. It's relatively slow, 2 or 3 days. And in the US, I think it's 4 days. If you spend over a certain amount, and I believe it still exists. So if you order something for $21 or 21 euro, you then have to add €3 more to get free shipping, and it works really well. People do add products to their basket, but it's not exactly the world's most thrilling experience to have to add €3 of stuff that you don't need to your basket. So they launched Amazon Prime, and this was in 2005, 2nd of February 2005. And this is the way they launched it. And I have a picture of Jeff looking older here. Dear customers, so this is actually the letter that they sent to their customers and how they launched it. Because if you think about Prime, it's not something you can go and touch and feel. It's something you understand the concept of. Dear customers, I am very excited to announce Amazon Prime, our first ever membership program which provides all-you-can-eat express shipping. It's simple. For a flat annual membership fee, you get unlimited 2-day shipping for free on over 1 million in-stock items. Members also get overnight shipping for $3.99 an item, order as late as 6:30 p.m. Amazon Prime takes the effort out of ordering, no minimum purchase and no consolidating orders. 2-day shipping becomes an everyday experience rather than an occasional indulgence. So what we're doing here is he's explaining to you what the problem that you have is. Currently, you have the problem of you need to have a minimum purchase and then you get free shipping. And if you want to have 2-day or fast shipping, it's expensive. And in fact, the next page, it says a bit more about this. We're offering Amazon Prime membership at the introductory price of $79 a year, which includes sharing the benefits with up to 4 family members in your household. Considering we normally charge $9.48 for 2-day shipping on a single box and $16.48 for overnight, many of our customers will find the program very rewarding. It works across books, DVDs, music, electronics, yada, yada, yada. Here he's saying this is the problem that you're currently having. You're currently having to spend extra on shipping. Amazon Prime solves that problem for you. We expect Amazon Prime to be expensive for Amazon.com in the short term. In the long term, we hope to earn even more of your business, which will make it good for us too. We hope you enjoy our latest innovation. You can sign up here. Sincerely, Jeff Bezos. So you can see this is how it was announced to customers. We all got this email in our inboxes. It was put on the website. This was shared with newspapers. Newspapers wrote about it, people talked about it, and it's exactly how people first heard of Amazon Prime. This is before they had video, before they had all the other stuff, back 15 years ago, and customers loved it. Amazon Prime now has 150 million subscribers, all paying about $100 each. So there's $15 billion a year in revenue just from Prime subscription alone. But also Prime members spend twice as much as non-Prime members. So this product, this feature, Amazon Prime, has been really successful for Amazon. And it's successful partially because it's a great idea and it works. But the way that they decided to do it was by writing that letter. Because when you think about that letter, what do you actually need to write that letter? All you need is the idea, the customer insight of knowing what customers want, and the ability to write. You don't need the product. You don't need the minimum viable product. You don't need anything. You just need those skills. You don't need coding skills. You don't need presentation skills. You don't need design skills. You don't have to be a product manager or an innovator. You just have to be a person who understands customers, has an idea, and can write about it. And so this is really where the benefit of the working backwards process came in. What Amazon discovered during this process, I have a flashing chat sign. Is there someone asking a question? Nope. Did customers really need these services Amazon Prime added? So I'll get to that question later on at the end. We'll come back to that. Sorry, trying to work Zoom, make sure it goes in the right places. Okay, so this whole process was invented by Amazon, and the normal process for coming up with a product is you build the product, you do something, you build the product, and then you write the launch announcement. And at Amazon working backwards, you basically write the launch announcement, and then you build the product, right? And what we're doing here, the reason we're doing this is a great insight, is because by writing the act of writing the launch announcement enables you to understand whether customers are going to like this product without having had to build the product. So you effectively get an iteration or some iterations of a lean startup type minimum viable product, the iteration loop, without having to do the building of the product in the first place. It does depend on having internal people or people available who can read, which is pretty much everyone, but who can read and understand and have some insight and actually comment from a customer perspective. Now, this process is used by Amazon, obviously, but it's also used by Airbnb, Autodesk, Unilever, and so on. It's been in a book called The Everything Store. It's been written about in Business Insider and Forbes. It's slowly gaining momentum, and the reason is because it's really, really easy, and it really helps. It really helps you to get an idea so that you don't have to go and invest in huge amounts of MVPs just to discover that an idea that doesn't work. You can discover it doesn't work by writing a letter. You can still get it wrong, and Amazon lost hundreds of millions of dollars on the Fire Phone. I don't know whether anyone remembers it. It wasn't very good, but it used the same process. The problem was the decision-making process around it. Like what happened with the Fire Phone is that Jeff was jealous. This is at least an interpretation of what happened. I don't know, I'm not Jeff, but the interpretation is that that I've read is that Jeff was jealous of Apple and Google with their Android systems and iPhones and decided that we need a phone. And so they did this and the real customer for this was actually ended up being Jeff as opposed to the consumer. And if you looked at the Fire Phone, there's nothing about it that really makes a consumer excited. So the goal for today is that you'll be able to use the working backwards process to see your idea from a customer's perspective and to communicate your idea in a customer-centric way. We might talk about how to collaborate to improve the idea and gain alignment amongst different teams at the same time. What we won't talk about is how to take the idea through the next steps through investment, sign-off, execution, and launch, but this whole process does fit into that really well. And we won't talk about how to adapt working backwards to your organization. What you'll need to use the process against exactly what I said before is the idea. Don't worry if you don't have one now, but you'll come up with an idea, customer insight, and the ability to write. And as I said, the real advantage of this process is that anyone in the organization can do it. You don't have to be the CEO, you don't have to be a product manager, you don't have to be a manager of anyone or anyone senior, you can be anyone. So at Amazon, the entire organization from sort of professional level and upwards does training on this and can come up with ideas. And this is how, whenever anyone says, oh, I've got an idea on how to do this, the response is go and write a working backwards document and we'll see about it. And it tends to sometimes turn into a product. And when it doesn't, it's because management reviews the document and then we discover why it doesn't work. And then we have an opportunity to educate our teams on why this won't work. So the process is, this is a slightly complicated diagram, but I hope it makes sense. First of all, you write your launch announcement. You collaborate using this announcement and you iterate over this announcement and get it better and better. You capture questions and answers in FAQs in an FAQ document, potentially customer FAQs and internal FAQs. So internal FAQs are basically, if you're taking it to engineering, they might ask, how do I implement that? Can I reuse this? Can I reuse that? You can dig into all that sort of detail. With customer FAQs, you might also have a mock-up as well to be able to communicate the idea. You then go back and revise the launch announcement. Now that iteration, because all you're doing is working on text, is much, much faster than any type of MVP or collecting data from customers. Now, it isn't data from customers. That's the difference. It's not data from customers, so it's not as reliable, but it's much cheaper and much faster. So as long as you have good, reliable people who have insight into customers, salespeople, managers, marketing people, customer service people, whoever it is, even your partners and distribution partners, you can get this process to be quite good. And this is exactly how, in fact, I mean, Apple uses some different process, but effectively this iteration internal loop that they have through their ideas internally is what they do. And certainly Amazon does this as well. Then you have an investment decision and you build the product. And of course, during this, you keep referring to the Working Backwards launch announcement, because your goal is to focus all of your decision-making and your energy in implementation on the things that are going to make a difference to the customer. And the things that are going to make a difference to the customer, by definition, are the things that are written in the announcement. Because if it's not worthy being written in the announcement, then it's not worthy being a feature, at least not for the first cycle. And finally, you launch to customers. Now, what we do is we rewrite the launch announcement used as a marketing document. So you don't necessarily use the same document to launch as you do to test. You're using this framework as a way of communicating the idea and the problem and the solution to internal stakeholders, and to get alignment and to get an agreement and to make sure that the idea is actually good. When you come to launch it, you might well rewrite this differently. The document that I showed you earlier is from Prime, Amazon Prime, is basically the internal document that they reused for launch. And if you look at Amazon's Kindle one, it's really long and it has all of the product details in there, the Kindle launch document, but it's amazing. It's literally their internal product spec written as a letter to customers. We're just going to focus on this part, and in fact, we're only going to focus on the write launch announcement part. So write the launch announcement. This is what the template looks like. I'm going to take you through this step by step. I've got numbers there because this is the sequence that you do these parts in. But basically writing it like this, it looks a bit complicated because it has lots of parts, but it ends up being very simple to write. And then what's super powerful about this is that it's super simple to get feedback from people. So before we start, the writing tips. Firstly, we show, we don't tell. There are no opinion words, neutral data only, and let the reader judge, right? We don't want to be telling people what to think about this. We want to be telling people what we want to do and then asking for their opinion. And we don't use any jargon. We use the customer's words only, right? Imagine Oprah Winfrey or someone like that saying it. In terms of opinion words, this is a document that I got from Singapore Airlines when I flew with them. It said, it's on the menu, and it says, as you relax in the luxurious comfort of your seat, yada, 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 yada. Now, all this sort of stuff is telling me my opinion, which works quite well in that situation, but it's really terrible as an example of a Working Backwards document. The luxurious comfort of your seat, any airline can say that, right? If they had said instead, the widest in class at 19 inches and up to 3 inches more than our competitors, then I can form an opinion. And so this is the kind of thing we want in these documents. You want to write the specific data that tells me what is better about this product or this proposition, as opposed to what my judgment should be about the product. So we start out by addressing the future customers. You put the future date in there, right? And you say, dear customer. Now, you want to put the name of the customer in such a way that the customer would recognize and your internal staff would recognize. So don't use dear Persona 3 or something like that. You want to use like dear Amazon retail customer, dear Amazon e-commerce customer, or dear parent of children under 3, right? Or whatever your customer base is. Something that people will recognize, and you put a future date in there so that whenever anyone's reading this, they're putting themselves automatically into the customer's shoes, not from their internal point of view. You write down the problem. What is the problem or need that you're addressing, right? And this helps the reader to understand the perspective, the reader to understand the customer's perspective. Now, as a reader, I can read this problem, but the original problem with Prime was that you have to buy extra products to get free shipping, or pay extra to get fast shipping. Now, by reading that, I can see, yes, that is a problem, that is annoying. Or else I could read this and think, I don't think that's really a problem for the customer, but at least I'm assessing this from the customer's perspective, right? Then you describe the solution and how it solves the problem. And again, because we've just read here's the customer, here's the problem that customer has, and now we're reading the solution, we're now reading, is this solution any good? And we're seeing it from the customer's perspective, and it forces us into that customer first perspective that really needs, that really helps people to make an assessment of the product from a customer's perspective. We write the key benefits and quantify them in relation to the problem, right? So that, again, this helps me to assess it. I've seen the solution. Does this solution solve the problem? Yes, it does. here's the benefits, and here's the actual financial benefits or the measurements of these benefits. Do I think that this is valuable enough to make me want to buy this product? I write a quote from what a customer would say if they had this product. So imagine what the customer would say. Now this helps me to assess, given the problem, given the product, the solution, given the benefits, do I think a customer will react like this? Because if the customer's reaction is, I think it's very nice, then it might be feasible and believable, but it's obviously not compelling enough. If you write down there that the customer gets really excited about it, but actually it's not realistic, you'll read this and you'll be able to see this is not realistic. And finally, you describe how to use it, how much it costs, and where to get it or acquire more information. Now, this is basically price and placement. If you're familiar with the 4 Ps, by the way, the 4 Ps of marketing, we actually have here the product, the promotion, the price, and the place, right? So this is basically a marketing-driven document. But we're saying this is what you need to do. And now, as a customer, as a reader, I'm now assessing, will the customer take those actions to get those benefits? I've seen the problem, I've seen the solution, I've seen the benefits, I've seen how I think the customer should respond. Will they actually go and do this? Will they buy this product? And this is where you have to say in this section things like the complete cost of ownership. So not just Amazon Prime membership is $79 a month, and then you click on things and you get free delivery. For some types of products, like if it's Amazon Web Services, for example, you might have to go and learn about how to use Amazon Magic Beanstalk or Compute Cloud or whatever you need to learn. You might have to learn about it. Now, am I going to want to learn it? Am I going to be motivated enough to learn it? This is where we really assess that. Finally, you summarize the solution and the benefit in 2 sentences, and this has to be good, right? Because otherwise no one's going to read any further. So this is like your summary. And finally, you put a headline. And if you can't create a good headline, then it's not a good enough idea, and you go back to the start. You try and iterate on this, right? So this is the example of the Amazon Prime might be never pay for 2-day shipping again, right? Or always get free shipping, that kind of thing. So if you could, any good idea, you need to be able to summarize it in a way that someone who reads the little tiny bit, if they react to that and think, oh, that sounds interesting, I'll read the executive summary. Okay, that sounds interesting. Yes, I'll read about it. Oh, yes, that's my problem. Okay, yes, that's a good solution to my problem. Oh, this promotion, this benefits make sense, and that's a reaction I believe in. And yes, I'll go and do that. Now you've got someone who's going through this document and sort of understanding the reaction that they will have when you launch the product. I hope that makes sense. Finally, you sign off from your exec sponsor or CEO, right? The reason you do this is because the reader who's reading this internally to your organization or whoever's reading it needs to understand that the sponsor has to buy in, right? So they have to take it seriously. And if the sponsor is itself, they need to be thinking that this is something that they are going to say to their customer. And you have to choose the sponsor well. The sponsor has to be the person who takes responsibility for delivering this to the customer. And you can optionally add a quote from the sponsor to really rub this in, to make sure that you're seeing, does the sponsor, would the sponsor be proud of delivering this? And you can see that the Amazon Prime one, Jeff was quoted as saying, we think this is going to be expensive for us in the short term, but long term we'll earn more of your business. So it really explains why we're doing it as well. Now, it's slightly hard to describe this, but when you get this document down and you get this format, and I'll send you the PDF of this, readers will automatically give you feedback from a customer's perspective. They can't help it. When they read this and you tell them, imagine if I was to send this to a customer. I'm not going to send it, but imagine if I did. What do you think a customer would say, right? How do you think a customer will respond? And a customer will actually understand this. Someone reading it will understand this from a customer's perspective and automatically give you feedback from the customer's perspective as opposed to from their perspective, right? And that's the value of this. Now, the process that you go through with this, this is the page that I might, what's the time? 37. Okay, I think I'll go through this really quickly. But basically, you've done this, you go and iterate with people, people are giving you feedback. You take it to all these different groups of people in your organization and you get feedback, firstly on the idea, to improve the idea, and secondly on how would you go about implementing this. And that helps to align people, on the idea, helps to align each of these groups, helps to get the feedback from each of these groups, but it also specifically helps to make sure that when they go and implement it, they're all implementing the same thing, right? Which is one of the major challenges that people have. And I mentioned the rest of this process already there. Now, the benefit of this whole process is working backwards. You're able to generate and refine ideas better and collaborate across teams to create ideas that customers will love, right? So by writing it down like this, instead of having to have a presentation that's beautiful or a piece of code that's a demonstration to get people to buy in, you're not influencing them with these relatively superficial tactics. You're just having text, and the text is really boring unless it's really exciting, right? It's only exciting when what you have in there is something that makes me read this and go, oh, that's a real customer problem, and yes, that's a solution to this problem, and yes, we can do this, and yes, I think customers will buy this, and now I'm excited, right? But by doing this, you're getting everyone's feedback and everyone part of your team feeding into how do we improve this idea. You get alignment with a shared vision, and people often struggle with this, with getting alignment with a shared vision. But by having this, then everyone starts to see the whole thing from the customer's perspective. So we break out of our silos, and we're now thinking from the customer's perspective, and then working backwards to, well, how do I go about implementing a thing that delivers this to the customer? As a manager or an investor, it helps you select ideas for investment. So making investment decisions based on customer impact and corporate strategy, as opposed to some sort of fantasy spreadsheet which goes up and to the right. Right. So this is the idea where everyone who's done this, you end up with a situation where someone who's very charismatic does a presentation with beautiful slides and a graph that goes up and to the right, because they all do. No one has ever presented a proposition for investment where the graph goes flat, right? So they all go up and to the right. But what we want to do is try and get our management and our investors to think about this from the customer's perspective. And so you actually present this type of document, or a document inspired based on this, or a presentation based on this, to them to help them understand, well, here's the customer problem, here's the solution we're proposing, here's why we think customers are going to buy it. And now management is starting to think about this from that perspective, as opposed to from, does that spreadsheet fit my spreadsheet, right? They will still ask those cost-benefit questions, and they're important as well. But if you're only making a decision based on that, then you're not making it based on customer impact and corporate strategy, which is the most important type of decision. And then finally, implementing without waste. So when you go and implement, you're taking this document as your North Star, and you're having everyone to review this document and say, well, what are you building that's going to help us deliver this value to the customer? And it helps people narrow down the work that they're doing and make sure that they're not actually implementing an entire database redesign, for example, as part of this thing, but they're actually implementing it without waste, right? So that's the basic structure of the process. Just looking at the time, I do realize that I'm looking at the wrong time, and I thought that I had less time than I do, so I have rushed through this somewhat. Now I'm seeing the time over here, it's 1/2 not 40 past. Anyway, so I've gone through this faster than I intended to, but hopefully that got you some understanding of what the working backwards process is. I have also developed this this canvas that I find useful, and I will just explain this canvas briefly, because it really does help to understand where this is coming from. I mentioned previously about the 4 P's of marketing: the product on the left here, the product, the price, the promotion, and the place. Right. Now, what we're doing here is we're trying to link the 4 P's of marketing in this document to our customer discovery on the right. So this is the things that customers care about. So I'm a customer. You're trying to identify a customer particular segment, and especially the early adopters. I have a problem, right? Does your solution solve my problem, right? I have a value that this problem is worth. Is your cost less than the value that my problem is worth? I have selection criteria through which I choose solutions to this problem. Your benefits, your promotion, the thing you're promoting about your benefits, does that match my selection criteria? And then my information sources, where I go for ideas, where I go to start to find solutions, are you in the right place for me to find you? And of course, the customer is seeing all of this through the lens of alternatives, substitutes, and competition, right? So it doesn't matter what's going on, that's how the customer is viewing. The customer has this problem regardless of whether you have a product or not. And if they don't have a problem, then there's no point in your product, right? But if you do have a problem, then there are alternatives, substitutes, and competition, right? So they will see it through that lens. So there is the format. It's relatively easy to use, because when you write it down like this, everyone in your organization can read it and can understand where this is coming from and can see this from a customer perspective, and will then provide you feedback and questions on that perspective, which is really useful. So I'll open up to Q&A.
Okay, so I would say there is 1 or 2 which is popping up to my mind. Is what about perks? If you offer a goodie or something like that with this letter or so, or discount. Is that something you think it's useful or not?
You want to speak, Steve?
So hello, I am again. There was an issue. I was pushed out, so sorry for that.
Okay. I hope it wasn't me.
No.
Okay, well, I'll just answer your questions. So I've got two more questions to answer here. One is from Iris. Hi, Iris. Thanks for this nice presentation. Will we get the slides? Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Yes, I'll give you the slides and I'll give you the PDF of the visual what's the word? The visual template. I'll give you this template here, right? So I'll send you the slides and the visual template. I presume that is a way of, actually, I don't know how to send it. So if I'm unable to send it, please connect to me on LinkedIn or an email. My address is at the end here. Please connect to me and ask for it. Otherwise, I'll send it via Steve somehow. Steve, I presume I can send things, can I?
Yes, I mean, we will provide them with a link where they can get them.
Cool. And then Iris also asked, would this process work for a small startup with not so many people inside the organization to give feedback on the letter? Yes, it does. It's I found that I use at least the thinking and usually write the letter myself, even for ideas that I'm exploring on my own. And in fact, when I was coming up with Working Backwards as a product to sell to people, I wrote a dear customer letter for Working Backwards. Right, and it's only for me. So obviously I'm not getting much benefit from alignment because there's only me to align, so it's not that hard. But the act of what I found is that the act of writing it down really helps clarify. How to think about this. Right, it really helps clarify the thinking and make sure that you're making good decisions. Steve, Steve just asked me if I can make him a co-host. I think I can. Yes, there you go. You should be co-host now. So yes, it does work. It's more valuable in a corporate situation where you have lots of alignment to do, but it still does provide a lot of value in a startup. I just find that it's a much cheaper way of doing a superficial sort of MVP type analysis without having to build the MVP and test it. Bruno, for startups, it can be difficult to get a clear client perspective internally. Any ideas on helping with that? And Rahul, actually, I'll answer the other question first because there's one early one here. Is this letter also good for sending to clients to introduce and sell products to them? So yes, it can be. You need to review it, make sure that, especially if you're in a large organization, you need to obviously check that with management and policy, and there's always processes depending on how conservative your organization is. If you're a small organization, you don't necessarily have that. What I find is that people who read this get a little bit confused by this future date, right? So you need to introduce this as, this is something that I'm thinking about doing in the future. What do you think? I want your feedback on an idea that I have, as opposed to I'm sending, this is a proposition now. But yes, you can do that, and you can certainly use this as a basis for marketing. And I think that using this type of thing as a basis for marketing is usually much more effective than trying to come up with marketing abstractly, because all the marketing that's really effective, especially if you're not in a branding business, like if you're Coca-Cola, it's different because Coca-Cola is all about branding and demand creation. You guys mostly don't have that kind of demand creation budget for marketing. If you do, you're in a different world, which is fine. But generally, when you don't, you need to make sure that your marketing is really appealing to customers because they have a problem. And the reason why this works is because as a customer, the thing that I'm thinking about, I'll go back to this one here, is my problem, right? That's why I'm thinking about it. And if it's not top of my list, then I'm not thinking about it. I'm not looking for a solution. I haven't allocated the budget. I don't even have a way of making a decision about a solution. So you can't sell to me. So you have to start off with the problem. And that's why when you think about marketing, this whole type of document is not a bad start for your marketing. And people would either you do the Amazon style and literally write it as a dear customer letter and market with it, or just use it to inspire marketing, right? For startups, it can be difficult to get a clear client perspective internally. Any ideas on getting help with that? Yes, so it can be difficult. It can be difficult for big companies as well. And especially, I mean, the problem that Amazon had with the Fire Phone is exactly this. Jeff Bezos Jeff Bezos was convinced that they needed to have a phone, right? And they needed to be in the phone business. So that skewed the entire product development. And it really meant that there wasn't really a customer need to be addressed. So that was a bit of a problem. So it is possible. The real thing with this is, to me, is about getting people to start thinking about the customer at all, right? And so by using this kind of process, you at least get people into the mindset of thinking about the customer. You write down, this is what I think the customer's problem is, and at least people start thinking, well, is that a problem? Do I know it's a problem? How would I find out? How can I learn if this is a problem, right? And generally people start going down that path. And you'll also find that, especially when you put people in that situation so that they're thinking from the customer's perspective, they will actually have a lot of information about customers, even if they're not currently using it. Even if they're currently making most decisions based on the silo, they will actually have good interpretations. But I find that the best people to go for with this are either management or sales or marketing, sometimes customer service, because they're the people who have most customer interaction. If a product team doesn't have enough customer interaction, then that's where they need to go to start to get that. And then they need to have a lot of direct customer interaction themselves to really learn firsthand. And in fact, the more a product team or product manager knows about the customer and has this authority about the customers, the more authority and effectiveness they'll have in their organization and the more success they'll have. Does that answer your question, Bruno? Yep. Okay, well, that's all of the questions that people have raised, unless there's other questions or people have raised hands. Don't think so. So if anyone else has any questions, feel free to jump in. Nope, it looks like that's it. So I guess I'll hand back over to Steve then.
Yes, if so.
I stop the share? I think I stopped the share.
Yeah, that would be fine. And then
before I do one, if I can just ask for an action, if it's possible. So I will send you the visual template and the process, which is in this spreadsheet, in this slide deck. I'll ask for feedback. I don't know whether, Steve, you normally do a feedback on these things. If
yes,
you don't,
we do. We do.
Okay, great. Well, I'll get that feedback from you then. If you found it useful, please tell your friends and colleagues and people about this, because I'd love to be able to help other companies to accelerate their innovation processes. And I will send that information to you. So that's the last thing from me.
Okay.
Feel free to contact me. As I said, that is my information will be, oops, there it is, there's me. My information will be there, and I'm sure Steve will pass that on, but feel free to contact me on LinkedIn or anything else.
Okay.
I'll hand back to Steve.
Thank you very much. So first of all, Richard, thank you very much for all these insight, and to the participants, thank you for having been with us for this first workshop webinar we are holding. Next month, there will be, like with Richard, there will be a fireside chat on the second Tuesday of the month. There will be on the third Tuesday of the month, there will be a webinar, and so on. We will do that during all the upcoming months. So stay tuned for that. We would like to thank you. And also, as usual, afterwards, the video will be available online. And again, Richard, thank you, and thank you to all our partners. And for those who are interested in the AWS sponsorship months, just contact me, and you will get the information. So without further ado, we would like to thank you and wish you still a pleasant afternoon, and please live to him.
There's a reason why for the last 13 years, startups overwhelmingly prefer to build on top of AWS. We have the largest number of services, making it easy for you to take on some of the biggest challenges with the smallest teams. We also have partnerships with the top VCs, accelerators, and incubators around the world, making it easier to secure your next round of funding.
I'm a solution architect with the AWS Head Start program. What we do is we work with startups in the education sector, and we help them build their services on AWS.
So We Power Tech is AWS's diversity and inclusion outreach program. The program is really twofold. One is to increase the number of underrepresented technologists within the industry, and the second is to provide a platform for them to be seen and heard.
If you're wondering how the AWS evangelism team might be able to help your startup, there are many ways. We're technically credible across our entire catalog of products, so we can help you figure out which services might be able to meaningfully impact your business. We also want to help tell your story. So if you're building something cool, we want to know about it and help spread that message to the world. So you might end up on stage at an event like AWS Summit. If you're a startup, you should also definitely check out the AWS Lofts. These are event spaces that are free to anyone with an AWS account. And you can treat them like co-working spaces, but the awesome thing about them is that we also have people like technical evangelists like myself, solutions architects that come and give hands-on technical workshops and sessions to help you learn how to more effectively utilize the AWS products and platforms that you're already building on top of.
We are a dedicated team of people that love startups, that we just want to come and help you with whatever we can, whether it be technical or business focused. We are here to help guide you and make sure that you do have a say in what's going on. We do get your feedback. We do bring that feedback to the service teams. That is what we're here for.